Hello guys and welcome to today's session. Today we are going to talk about Android zero touch enrollment to Intune using Google ZTE. So this is again going to be one of the shorter ones. So this is what we have in the agenda. First, we are going to get some background into what Android enrollment is, the various flavors of doing Android enrollment, and then the Android enrollment methodologies, what are the various ways by which we can do a specific kind of enrollment. Then we'll talk about the need for having a zero touch enrollment and what scenarios it's needed, what is the advantage of doing a zero touch enrollment. Then we'll talk about what are the steps that are needed to be followed in order to do a Google zero touch enrollment to Intune. Then I'll do an end-to-end demo, and after the demo there is a bonus section wherein I'll talk about what exactly is DPC. Probably you guys would have seen something like this before. If there is an Android device and that Android device needs to be enrolled to Intune, or maybe some other MDM. I'm going to stick to Intune for now because I cannot comment on other MDM's capabilities. But for Intune, these are the various ways by which we can enroll an Android device. Now, there is a legacy method called device admin, which has always existed with Android version 2.0, I believe. Then we had a newer methodology called Android Enterprise, which was initially made keeping in mind work profile scenario, wherein you can use the same BYOD kind of a scenario wherein you have a work container and everything related to organization is there in the container. It is encrypted, it is pin protected, and it does not interact with anything outside of that container. Now, if you can use the Android enterprise work profile methodology for device owner kind of a scenario as well. And inside of device owner, you would have heard about something like corporate owned single use or kiosk, or corporate owned business only, or COPE, corporate owned personal enabled. And then there is another methodology known as Android open source or AOSP. This is and it again has two methodologies known as userless and user based, and this is usually used in devices that are running with Android OS, customized OS, wherein there is no GMS, right? So this would be a high level view of various ways of enrolling an Android device to Intune. And if I quickly go into the portal, you guys would have already seen it before. So if I go into the Android tab and if I go into Android enrollment, the things that we saw in the deck right now is what we are already seeing over here. So this is device admin. These are the two ones under AOSP. So over here under AOSP, we see userless and user based. This is what it's talking about. This is user associated. This is user based. And then inside of the Android enrollment profiles, so these 1, 2, 3, 4 are under Android enterprise, right? So that's what these 4 are talking about. This is personally owned device with work profile. That is this one for BYOD. Then this is corporate owned dedicated device known as COSU, userless or dedicated device. Then there is COBO, which is fully managed, which is this one. And then there is COPE, that is corporate owned device with work profile, which is this one. And then we have already seen device admin in the screen as well, right at the very bottom, and these two being for AOSP. So this diagram should not come as something new because this is already there in the Intune portal. We are already surfacing it. And if we look at Google's documentation, they also very clearly segregate that these are the ways of enrolling an Android device to Intune. Now, which one to use? Again, we are not going to go into very details of that, but well, this has been deprecated with Android version 10 and above. This is, Google is suggesting not to use this because it's not as secure as Android Enterprise World. Now, inside Android Enterprise World, work profile only can be used if it is a BYOD kind of a scenario. If it is a company-owned scenario, this is what this is what needs to be used. Usually, this is the one that we end up using. If it is a corporate, so in the difference between this one and this one is in COBO there is a user affiliated to the device and this is a userless device. This is usually used in case of a kiosk mode wherein there is no user intervention needed and we're just keeping the device at one place, like when you walk to a theater or something like that. You see at the I mean when you have to book the tickets, you see that there is a tab that is present and anybody can go and go to Book My Show and do a ticket booking, right? That would be one of the common use cases for a COSU device. And then AOSP I have already spoken about. So with this in mind, now I want to present another slide, and this talks about the methodologies of enrolling a device to Intune. Now, if you are doing this, if you are doing a device admin enrollment, then that is a manual method. That is what I have shown over here. Or if you're doing an Android enterprise enrollment as a BYOD work profile, this is what I have shown over here. So this method and this method both are manual method, wherein the end user will have to go to the App Store or Play Store, in this case Play Store. He'll have to download the company portal application, log into it, and while he has logged into it, the device is going to be actually registered and Intune enrolled, and silent OJT registration Intune enrollment. And once the Intune enrollment is done, then the policies will come down to the device. But in both the cases, there is a user intervention and there is a user dependency. The user has to download the application from the store. Now, if I talk about these COSU, COBO, and COPE, if we want to do a COSU, COBO, or a COPE enrollment, there is a way of enrolling to these via Intune using these three methods. We can use a NFC, we can use a QR code, or we can use a token. So usually QR code would be the one that is used, or maybe token. So in this case, what needs to be done is we don't need to download any application. So that is why this is manual, and I have categorized this as partial zero touch. Partial because if you're using QR code or NFC or token, there is something that the end user has to do. And what is that something? Again, I've done a deep dive on these in a different Nugget, which talks about Android enrollment options. And I've done a demo on how to enroll a device with QR code or with token. But just a high level overview, we have to unbox the device. At the very first screen, we have to tap for around 6 or 7 times, which opens up the camera. And then we have to scan a QR code. That QR code is coming from Intune. And once we have scanning that QR code, the device is going to follow some steps and then it's going to end up getting enrolled. What is the advantage? The advantage is, in this case, the setup is partial zero touch. I say partial because, well, the end user will have to open the camera and scan the code, right? Now, all the end users are not going to have the code. Only they will have the code if the IT admin has provided the code, right? Now the IT admin has to be very careful on providing the code. He cannot provide the code to anybody or everybody. Otherwise, those devices might end up getting enrolled as well, which are not supposed to get enrolled, right? That is one way. The other way is that it might be dependent on the IT admin to first set up the device and then give it to the end user, right? So what I'm trying to say is I have categorized these as partial zero touch because there is something, there is a step that is pending on the end user to perform, and that step being he has to open up the QR code, scan the QR code from the mobile device, or he has to enter the token manually or tap with the NFC device. Now let us talk about a practical use case. Let's talk about a use case wherein I have purchased 1 lakh devices and I want to achieve a complete seamless zero touch experience wherein there is no IT intervention needed per device, right? So there might be an IT in place because obviously if there is an Intune enrollment, we're facilitating IT admin has to be there who is going to create the policies and stuff. But I don't want the dependency on the end user to scan the QR code and only then the enrollment to happen, because what if the end user doesn't do it? And the device is not enrolled, but he's enjoying the device, right? He's making use of it. I don't want that to happen. So think of this use case as similar to what you would do in case of a managed supervised device for autopilot or for DEP. So if you are familiar with the autopilot and Windows world, when you're autopiloting a device, the end user has to go with the customized OOBE experience, and the device is not usable until and unless autopilot is done. And this is all mandatory. I mean, you can use ESP and you can use a lot of stuff via which the end device will not be usable until and unless the autopilot is complete. The similar thing is, and autopilot kicks in the moment the device is powered on and connected to the internet. So the end user does not have to scan any QR code or download any application or do stuff like that, right? Everything happens automatically, automagically the moment the device is powered on. Similar thing happens with the depth supervised devices as well, right? The admin does all the setup and then ships the device directly to the user, right? The admin does not unbox the device. The user unboxes the device, powers it on, connects it to the internet, and then the enrollment flow happens. Now, it might not be a zero touch, it might be a zero touch depending upon the kind of depth profiles we have assigned. But the point that I'm trying to make here is the main reason of using a zero touch, which we are going to see later in the advantages section, is we don't want any IT admin intervention, and we want that the device should directly go to the end user. The end user powers it on, and then the device becomes business ready without the end user having to download any application and without the admin relying on the user to follow all those steps, right? So then if that is the requirement, then we can do a complete zero touch enrollment of an Android device to Intune as well. And for that, there are two methodologies present. There is something called Google ZTE and there is something called Samsung Knox. So we can do a zero touch enrollment of an Android device to Intune using Samsung Knox or via using Google Zero Touch. In this tutorial, we are going to do a deep dive on this. Later on, I'll be doing a separate deep dive nugget on Samsung Knox enrollment as well. So for now, what we are doing is we are doing this one. We are doing a Android enrollment to Intune via Google Zero Touch enrollment, and we are going to see how the enrollment is going to be seamless. Okay. Now, before I move on to the next slide, there is one disclaimer here. The disclaimer is the verbiage zero touch, in my opinion, is very subjective. The reason I say subjective is I was always under an impression that the QR based enrollment is a zero touch enrollment, but it actually is not. That is why I have categorized it as partial zero touch, because there is a dependency on the end user to open the camera, scan the QR code, keep the QR code safely and stuff like that, right? That is what we are eliminating in this. However, in this also there are some touches that is going to happen. When I say some touches, what I mean is you will have to click on next, you will have to click on finish, you might have to click on I agree when you're accepting the EULA from Samsung Knox, or when you're accepting the EULA from Intune, or when you're accepting the EULA from Google services. So when I say complete zero touch, I don't mean that you won't have to touch the device also and the enrollment will happen. If you want a user-based enrollment to happen, the user will have to get authenticated. So he will have to enter his username and password. If it's a user-less device, then user authentication is not needed. But still, there are a couple of screens wherein we'll have to click on next, finish, or we'll have to click on I agree. However, if the end user is not clicking on that, the device will not be usable, just like it is in case of autopilot or depth. Right? So those are all mandatory steps if the device needs to be used. But the point that I wanted to segregate is there might be some people who might come up and say that, okay, you know what, QR code based enrollment is actually zero touch. Well, it might be for them. Again, as I said, that's because it is subjective. Because where do you exactly draw the line? Do you say that scanning of a QR code via camera is a part of zero touch? If it is, then well, obviously QR code enrollment is a zero touch enrollment. However, if you technically look at it, for me, a zero touch enrollment would be making sure that the end user is only doing two things. First is entering his credentials, because you cannot automate the entering credentials part if you want to associate the device with a user, right? Because he has to authenticate himself, right? So no matter how much of zero touch you want to do, that part has to be done, unless you're talking about a user less scenario, a device which is userless, which we will see as well. In that case, there will be no user authentication. So for me, when I look at it, for me, a zero touch means no touching to the device except entering credentials if needed and clicking on next, next, and finish. That's it. No manual task of downloading an application, signing into the application, or anything. I mean, any setup, right? But yeah, I mean, but the point that I'm trying to make here is when I say zero touch, there might be a couple of touches that might be needed here. Okay, anyways, so now with that being set as the background, now let's do a very quick recap on why the zero touch is needed. Why do we need a zero touch based enrollment? This is pretty much self-explanatory. If you are using Windows Autopilot or if you are using DEP, you already know what is the advantage of a zero touch enrollment, right? So zero touch enrollment is good because zero touch enrollment is needed because it helps us mass deploy devices and provision Android tabs or mobile device, because if we are doing it manually, it might be cumbersome, and the IT, let's say that it was a case wherein the IT admin had to set up the device one by one and then ship it to the end user. Obviously, if there are 10,000 devices, it is not viable for us to do that, right? That is what Autopilot helps us achieve. There is no IT admin intervention. You don't have to use a golden image, right? So similarly over here, that is what we are using in case of Android as well. Just trying to draw the analogy here with Autopilot or with DEP, that if we have a lot of devices, no IT intervention is needed. The device directly goes from the OEM or the reseller to the end user. End user gets the magical experience of unboxing the device, and the device is business ready. Okay, the entire process involves unpacking the mobile device, booting up, installing all the required business application and configuration. So if you're doing it manually, then the IT admin will have to do all these things, right? But we are using zero touch. So well, if you're using zero touch, then all these things are not needed to be done. Zero touch enrollment is a streamlined process which lets organizations pre-configure their enterprise devices that they purchase, and the devices are ready to good to go out of the box, and the deployment is streamlined. On the first boot itself, device checks first whether there is any policy, any configuration assigned to it or not. When I'm saying configuration, I'll discuss in detail what configuration I'm talking about. But think of it just like Autopilot. Autopilot device boots up, Autopilot.dll checks, reaches out to the Autopilot endpoint and sees whether there is any Autopilot profile assigned to it or not. If it is, then it takes that Autopilot route. If there isn't, then it takes the normal OOBE, uncustomized OOBE, right? Similarly, same thing over here. Android device boots up for the very first time, checks if there is any configuration. Think of it like Autopilot profile. Whether there is any such kind of profile assigned to this device or not. If not, then it goes with the normal flow. If there is, then it goes with the customized flow. Okay, this offers a seamless deployment method for corporate owned devices, and because, well, obviously everything is seamless because we are able to do because all the devices have the same kind of experience and there is no IT intervention needed. So zero touch, zero hassle, and well, the device is secure out of the box. We can deploy fleets of these devices instantaneously, and it works with multiple brands. So Google zero touch enrollment works with multiple brands. It's not limited to a specific brand. Well, but then again, obviously, Google has a list that the devices has to be from these manufacturers only. I'll show you that list shortly, but this works with multiple brands, and I'm going to demo with a Samsung, but you are not limited to Samsung. You can use other devices from other OEMs as well. So all that needs to be done is device needs to be purchased. These two steps will be followed by the IT admin, and then the device will be deployed to the end user. We just purchase the device, ship the device to the end user, and the IT admin creates a configuration profile and deploys that configuration profile to the device. This is something that the IT admin will have to do, these two steps, and I'll show you guys that very shortly. Okay, but so I hope that the background makes sense. We are able to understand why zero touch is needed, when we will be using zero touch, and well, if you have, as I said, if you have experience with the DEP or Autopilot, you should be able to draw the analogy. What are the advantages? Well, again, self-explanatory. IT admins don't need to provision individual devices because the configuration can be. So I mean, again, we will talk about what this default configuration is, but I hope that the first part of the sentence makes sense, that IT admins don't need to provision individual devices one by one, and then IT admins always stay in touch. So let's say that there is a device, that device is lost. Okay, somebody has stolen that device, so that device also is still protected even though the device is not with the correct user, because that device, when it is powered on by the other person, whenever it connects to the internet, it is still managed, right? So he only is able to use the device as per the org's setup. So if you have put in a policy that no application in the device should work except a LOB application which you have deployed, then even if the device is stolen, the end user will not be able to do anything. Even if he factory resets the device, still he won't be able to do anything, because you have created a configuration profile and deployed to the serial number of the device, right? Which you will see later. And then end user just needs to get the device, unbox it, and then he is business ready. Now, I wanted to draw a comparison between this Google Zero Touch Enrollment and Autopilot or DEP. So think of this as similar to Autopilot or DEP provisioning, wherein we also do a out of the box enrollment of the devices. Well, I'm not drawing lines between whether they are zero touch or not. I am drawing lines between they are also used for bulk deployment of devices and enrolling them to Intune out of the box, similar to Google ZTE approach which we are following here. Now they are not zero touch. Over here we are pretty much zero touch except clicking on next finish. So there is one difference between Autopilot DEP and Google ZTE. Well, obvious differences. Autopilot is for Windows and DEP is for iOS and Mac OS, and Google ZTE is for Android. Well, that's a given. Other than that, the other dependency is if you want to autopilot a device, all you have to do is go to the Azure portal, and over there you can, or Intune portal, and over there we can upload the hardware hash or serial number of the devices, right? And then the device knows that it is now a managed device, and whenever we power on the device reaches out to the autopilot service. The same thing happens with DEP as well. So we go to the DEP portal and we can ourselves upload the serial number of the DEP devices. However, later on we will see that in case of Google ZTE, the serial number of the devices which we want to manage or supervise out of the box can only be uploaded to the portal by the reseller or the partner. So as a customer IT admin, I cannot upload the serial number or IMEI number of the devices to the portal. This can only be done by the reseller or by the partner. This is the only difference. Other than that, pretty much everything else remains the same between these two methods and this one. In both the cases, we upload the hardware details of the device, may that be IMEI number, serial number, or whatever or the hardware hash, whatever the case may be, and then we create a autopilot profile or a DEP profile and assign it to that device. Similarly, in this case, we will be creating a configuration profile and we will be assigning it to our device, and then that profile contains information of the MDM. So that MDM can be Intune, that MDM can be something else, right? But I just wanted to draw this comparison real quick. Now let's talk about what are the steps that are needed to be followed to achieve this. What is it that I need to do? But I hope that until now we have understood what zero touch enrollment is, why it is needed, and the two ways of doing a zero touch enrollment of an Android device to Intune, namely Google Zero Touch and Samsung Knox, right? Okay, and before I move forward, I want to show you guys this documentation. This is the link, and this is a documentation from Google which talks about all the MDMs which work with zero touch. So over here, obviously, you can say Microsoft Intune, you can say IBM Mass 360, and there are all SOTI, VMware Workspace ONE. So all the MDMs that support zero touch enrollment are listed over here. This is the first document I wanted to show, and this is the second document again from Google that I wanted to show you guys. It talks about the various models from manufacturers that support Google Zero Touch. So there might be a device that I have purchased from Samsung which might not work with Google Zero Touch. It's highly unlikely, but there might be such devices. So I'll suggest to make sure that if you are purchasing any device or if you're working with a reseller or partner, make sure that the device that we are looking at is a part of this list. Okay, and this list is not coming from Intune, this list is coming from Google. If you want to do zero touch enrollment, if you want to do normal enrollment or code based enrollment, you don't need to refer to this. And no matter which MDM you are wanting to use, this list will hold, because this is not MDM specific. This is coming from Google if you want to make use of zero touch enrollment. Okay, so it has all the models responsible for Samsung and Acer, and I mean all the different vendors that are out there. Okay. All right, so these are the two documents that I first wanted to show you guys. Now let's talk about what is the flow. What are the steps that we need to perform one by one in order to do a complete zero touch enrollment. Okay, so this is what the flow is. These are the 7 steps that we are going to follow to do a complete zero touch enrollment, and all these steps I will be doing in the demo. So the first step and second step, you can again draw the autopilot analogy. So in the autopilot analogy, or in the DEP enrollment as well, we were uploading the hardware hash or the serial number of the device somewhere, right? So in the first 2 steps, that is what is happening, but in a different way. So over here, the vendor or the partner or the reseller is creating a customer account. So think of customer account as, I mean, it's an account to which all the devices purchased by that user are associated. So each user or each organization will be having a customer account, right? Which will have a customer ID, and all the devices purchased by that customer or by that organization will be uploaded against him. So first, the vendor or the partner or the reseller is going to create a customer account. Let's say that I have a company named Everything About Intune, and I have purchased 10,000 devices. So first I need to go to the partner or reseller, and he is going to create a customer account for the customer with the name Everything About Intune, and he's going to give me a customer ID, which is going to be a numeric 8-digit or 9-digit customer ID. Then all the 10,000 devices that I have purchased, he is going to upload the serial number or IMEI number of those 10,000 devices against Everything About Intune or against the customer ID that he has just created, so that whenever I log into the same portal, I can see my devices which has been made available to me by the reseller. Okay, the reseller uploads the device details. So if it's a Wi-Fi only device, then it will only have a serial number. If it has a cellular connectivity, if you can put in a SIM, then there will be a IMEI. You don't need to put in a SIM. If that functionality is there, then the device will have a IMEI number. So these 2 steps are followed by the partner or reseller. And then once that is done, then I as a customer can log in to the zero touch portal. And once I log into that, I will be able to see all the devices against against the customer account that was created for me. I can see all the devices that I have purchased. Then I have to create something called a configuration profile. We will see all of this in the demo. Configuration profile contains some information, important values. It contains the information on what is the MDM to which the device is going to end up getting enrolled, right? Once that is done, the device is going to be shipped to the end user. So let me just show you guys what is going to be the flow. Let's say that this is the device, and think of this as the Google service, and think of this as Intune service or Microsoft. This is Intune. I apologize for the very bad diagram. This is Google service, and this is the device. Okay, the device is unboxed and powered on for the very first time. So the device first reaches out to the Google service. Okay, and when it reaches out to the Google service, it sees that there is a configuration profile assigned to this device. Now this configuration profile will be created over here. We will see this in the demo section. This is something that the IT admin is going to create, and this configuration profile is going to contain information of the MDM. So in this case, the configuration profile is going to contain information of the Intune endpoint, but you can have configuration of, let's say, AirWatch endpoint as well. You can have any such configuration. So the device first reaches out to the Google endpoint and realizes that this is a managed device and there is a configuration profile assigned to it, to the serial number or the IMEI number of this device. Now that configuration profile takes care of routing the device to the Intune endpoint, and in this configuration profile we also mention, so this configuration profile contains a lot of information. There are two important information that I want to call out right now. First is it contains information of the MDM. So it says whether you are going to go to AirWatch or whether you are going to go to Intune or to which MDM you are going to go to. And the second is, let's say that the device is going to go to Intune. We will see later on that there are many ways of enrolling a Android device to Intune, right? So we need to mention the methodology of enrollment as well. So for that, what we do is we create a token in Intune and then we use that token number over here. Again, more details on that very soon. But this is, I just wanted to give you a sneak peek into what is going to be the flow, similar to what you would see in case of autopilot as well, right? You power on the device, autopilot DLL takes you to the autopilot service and then figures out that this is a managed device, autopilot profile is downloaded, and then I mean the Intune stuff then carries on, and you, instead of Intune, you might have some other MDM as well with autopilot. Similar thing is happening over here, device going to the Google endpoint and Google endpoint containing the configuration profile assigned to this device. That configuration profile contains value of what is the MDM, where to reach out to, which token to use while enrolling. So that is what this flow talks about. The vendor does these two things. The IT admin is able to see the device. All he has to do is he has to create this configuration profile and assign this configuration profile to this device, right? He can do bulk assignment. He can create a default configuration profile as well, so that whenever any device is added by the reseller, it by default gets a specific configuration profile. And then the devices can be shipped to the end user and they are ready to be unboxed. Okay, now device reseller action. So we need to go to, again, we will do a deep dive of this later on. So this is one of the portals wherein the partner has to go and register himself and then he can create the customer account. We have already seen this. We have already seen this. Now we are going to do a deep dive of this document later on. This is the reseller guide, which talks about what are the things that the reseller has to do. And we have already spoken about what are the things that the reseller has to do. One of them being creating a customer account. We are going to see this in the demo, right? So this document talks about all those things that they have to do. The slide talks about the reseller actions. So the reseller action has to create a customer account for the customer, and then he has to upload the serial number or hardware ID of these devices to the portal. And once he has done that, then his job is done. The rest everything needs to be done by the IT admin. The IT admin is also going to log into the Google Zero Touch portal, and then the IT admin will do two things, right? What are those? So if I have to segregate between reseller and IT admin, IT admin is from the company. Reseller is doing two things. IT admin is also doing two things. What are the two things that the reseller is doing? He is creating a customer account first, and second, he is uploading the hardware details for all. He is uploading the hardware details for all the devices against this customer that he has created earlier. What is it that the IT admin is doing? Well, IT admin is creating a configuration profile, which we saw about over here. This configuration profile, which talks about which MDM the device is going to go to, this will be done by the IT admin. So he's going to create the configuration profile, and then he's going to assign that configuration profile to a specific device, just like we do in case of autopilot or DEP, right? So we create a DEP profile or autopilot profile, and then we assign it to a device. That is what the IT admin over here is also going to do. But these two steps are going to be done by the reseller. So customer actions or IT admin actions, he has to create an MDM profile or a configuration profile which talks about which MDM the device is going to go. And then if the IT admin, there are some things that he will have to do in Intune portal as well, right? Like he will have to, we'll see all of this, assign licenses, and then make sure that corporate enrollment is enabled, set up the scope for the user, create tokens and stuff like that, right? and this is the link for the same. So from the portal, the customer or the IT admin can do a lot of things. He can assign devices. He can see the devices that has been assigned to him. He can create configuration profiles, assign it to a device, make a configuration profile default, and then add or remove reseller. We are going to take a look over the profile over the portal, and then this is going to make more sense. Okay. Now, if there is no data connection when the device is powered on for the very first time, let's say that there is no internet or internet is not working, then or the device is not able to reach out to the Google server, then the zero touch enrollment flow is skipped, and you see the normal flow that would have happened if the device was not a zero touch device. And but let's say that there was a device which was skipped, but because internet was not there or something like that, but the device had a configuration assigned to it, then the device resets itself after the first connection to the Google server. Let's say that the internet was restored later on, or Google server was down, now it is up. So later on, the device is going to warn the person using it that after 1 hour the device is going to undergo a reset, because only the zero touch profile is going to come down, and all that flow is going to happen only during the OOBE, right? And for the OOBE, the device has to undergo a reset, so that reset happens automatically. You don't have to reset it manually. Okay, just need to keep this in mind. So using this zero touch approach, we are able to manage the entire life cycle of an Android device. We are able to deploy it and bulk enroll it using zero touch, wherein no QR code, no user intervention is needed. Once the device is enrolled, then everything else falls into place, right? We can deploy applications, we can deploy device restrictions, because the device is now enrolled. Now it doesn't matter whether it was enrolled as a zero touch or whether it was manually enrolled, or it doesn't matter how the device was enrolled. The device is enrolled. Now everything else is going to fall into place. All we have to do is create a security group, dynamic or static, user or device, and then just apply the application deployment or the device configuration deployment to those devices. And then obviously once the device is used, we can do a factory reset of the device, delete the device, or if you want to reprovision the device, just initiate a reset and give the device to somebody else. And then given that the device details are already there in our service, nothing else needs to be done again. Okay. All right. So enough said. Let's quickly start with the demo, and I want to demonstrate the entire thing to you. So we are going to do the COBO zero touch enrollment to Android as well as COSU zero touch enrollment to Android via Google ZTE. So guys, this is my Samsung Galaxy Tab, and as far as zero touch enrollment is concerned, there are two use cases. The first use case is I have this brand new setup. I just have to unbox it. The serial number of this is already uploaded, device configuration profile already created in the portal as I just saw. All I have to do is unbox it, power it on, connect it to the internet, and the device is going to get the profile. Or if I have an existing device, then for that, as the device is already in use, I will have to initiate a factory reset of that device. Only then the device is going to go through the out of the box experience again. So the same logic applies for autopilot as well as for DEP devices as well. So once the device, so these autopilot as well as DEP as well as zero touch provisioning, these things all happen in the out of the box. So if the device is being powered on for the very first time right now after being unboxed, then the device gets that profile during out of the box. But if the device is post the OOBE, then there is only one way of initiating the OOBE again, right? And that is by factory resetting it. So either I could just unpackage this and use this device for the very first time now. So when I'm going to power on this device, we are going to see that it by default takes us to the language and setup screen, right? The first screen of OOBE. Either that is the one option, or the other option is if I have an existing device, I use it. Let's say I've been using it. Now I just have to go to settings and then initiate a factory reset, which is again going to take the device back to the OOBE screen. So guys, for the demo, I'm going to reference this image which we have already seen in the theoretical section, and this is the flow that we are going to follow. Okay, so before I do that, let me quickly switch to the browser and show you guys first the official documentation that we have for Android enrollment. So this is where you need to go. This is the URL. And this documentation talks about all the ways of enrolling a Android device to Intune. So you see that you can enroll it via NFC and then QR code, and then there is a section which says that enroll using Google Zero Touch. So this is going to be our reference guide. Okay. So if I scroll down, it talks about all the steps that we have to perform, which we all are going to perform. If I keep on scrolling down, it tells us it tells us that we have to go to the admin center, link our account. This part is optional. And then we have to provide permission. This part is also optional. Enabling enrollment for corporate devices, we are going to do this. Linking zero touch account to Intune, this is also optional. And then creating a configuration profile, these are all mandatory steps. Okay, so this is what we are going to follow. Now there is another tutorial that I'm going to do on enrolling via Knox, Samsung Knox, but right now I want to focus on this guide. Okay, and this is our reference guide. Okay. All right. So the first thing that happens is, as per this screenshot, that the vendor, partner, or reseller is going to create a customer account. Okay. So there are a couple of guides which Google has published, and all of those guides are for different purpose. So the first guide over here is Android Enterprise.dev/s. This is the partner portal. So this is wherein your partner is going to log in and he is going to create a customer account. I cannot do this during the demo. Neither can you. You will have to reach out. Even if you want to set it up in your lab, you will have to reach out to a partner, and the partner will have to set this up. We do not have an option of creating a test partner account just for our lab purpose. So if you want to do this in your lab, unfortunately, you need to collaborate with a partner. Okay, and that partner or the reseller is going to log in over here. And what is he going to do? These are the steps that he is going to do. So Google has documented all the steps. This is the URL, and these are the things that the partner or reseller will have to do. He'll have to log into this portal and then create a customer account for us. So all the organizations, all the companies will be a customer for Google, right? So Google is going to create a customer account for all these companies. And once they have created the customer account, the intent is the partner has to upload the devices. So what I mean by that is, let's understand the flow here. Let's say that I, as an organization, have purchased thousands of Android devices and I want to enroll them via zero touch. When I say zero touch, I don't want any QR code. I don't want any IT admin intervention as well. So what I'll do, I'll place the order with the OEM or the partner or the reseller. And once I place the order, I will get those devices shipped directly to the end user. That's the advantage of doing a zero touch, right? That the devices are going to be directly to the end user and nobody else has any, and the end user will also have a seamless experience rather than doing a QR code or something like that. Now, between these two, I mean, after I place the order and when the end user gets the devices directly shipped, the partner or the reseller or the OEM will have to upload. First, he will have to create a customer account for each organization. So for, let's say I have purchased those 1,000 machines, those 1,000 tabs. I'll have to get in touch with the reseller or the OEM, and he will create a customer account for me. And all those 1,000 tabs that I have purchased, he is going to upload the serial number or IMEI number of all those 1,000 Android devices against my customer name. What that does is, now Google knows that these devices belong to this customer. Okay. And then there are many other things which the customer will have to do. So, but what the reseller has to do, reseller only has to perform two main actions. First is he has to create a customer account, and second, he has to upload the devices to the portal against that customer. How does he do this? this documentation talks about all of that. So this documentation is for the, as I said, for the reseller, for the partner. It talks about how he can create a customer. So where it says that he can create a customer like these, and who are the vendors available, how he can add a customer. I'm going to skip all these steps. I'm not going to show you. I mean, I cannot even show you this even if I wanted to, because you need to be an actual partner or a reseller to do these things, and you cannot create a test account. Okay, so over here it says that how you can create a customer account and stuff like that, and then it talks about how a partner or reseller can upload the device details. So they have to go to devices, and then they can upload it in form of a CSV. This is going to be the format, like this is the IMEI number, I mean the type, the ID, the manufacturer, profile type, and owner, right? This is going to be the format that we are going to use. And then if we scroll down, it talks about how you can bulk upload them, as I told you, by uploading a CSV file or stuff like that. So let me draw an analogy. So if I have to draw an analogy, think of this as similar to what we do in Autopilot as well. So in case of Autopilot, what we do first, we have to upload the hardware hash of all the devices, right? Now the advantage with Autopilot is, now Autopilot is a service of Microsoft. So you don't need to, you are not dependent on anybody else to upload those hardware hashes. All you have to do is you have to go to the Azure portal or the Intune portal and upload the hardware hash over there. Over here, we as a customer don't have the ability of uploading the hardware hash, or in this case the IMEI number or the serial number. The upload process will be carried out by Google, or the upload process will be carried out in most of the cases it will be carried out by the reseller or the partner. So the reseller or the partner will have to upload it. The rest everything else needs to be done by us. So the creation of the customer account and the upload of the device, this is what needs to be done by the reseller. So this is the guide that the reseller is going to follow. Now there is a guide for the IT admins as well. This is what we have to follow. So once the serial number has been uploaded against a specific customer, then everything, all the other configuration will be done by the IT admin for that customer. So this document, this is the link, and this documentation talks about, in the beginning it talks about what is zero touch and what are the prerequisites to do a zero touch. Well, obviously the device needs to run with Android 9 or later, and then you need to have a EMM. In our case the EMM is Intune, and where you can purchase the zero touch devices, it talks about that. What are supported, it talks about that. And if I keep scrolling down, then it talks about the steps that we are soon going to follow. First, obviously, we will have to purchase the device and then create a configuration profile and all this. This is what we are going to see very shortly. Now, before we do all of this, what we'll have to do is, let's say that I'm a customer, right? So I will have to create a Google account. So for that, it's very easy. There is a hyperlink over here. I just have to click on this, and then I just have to create a Google account over here. It will ask me for some questions. You'll just have to provide answers to those questions and then password and stuff like that. So this is the Google account that we are going to use to log into the Zero Touch portal. So now there are two portals. Okay. One is the portal which the partner or the reseller is going to use, for which he is going to log in over here. And what is he going to do when he logs into this portal? Well, he is going to perform these actions, right? Create a customer account and assign the devices. So that is the first portal. The second portal is the zero touch portal for the IT admin of the customer. We are going to take a look over there, and that is wherein most of our actions will be performed. Okay, so that is what. So if we want to log into that zero touch portal, we'll have to create account, right? So this is the section that talks about creation of that account. This is something that we are going to skip. I will talk you through about this at the very end. Okay, this talks about all the things that the IT admin can do when he logs into the zero touch portal. We are going to do all of these very shortly. Okay, but first I want to walk you through what the official documentation is talking about. Okay, so again, as I said, There are two portals. First portal for the partner, where he is going to create a customer account. He is going to upload the serial number or IMEI number of all the devices against a specific customer that he has created. And the second portal is for the IT admin of the customer. Once the IT admin from the customer goes to the portal, so this is the portal, this is the URL. Once who is the IT admin, so on the left hand side you can see the name of the customer, right? So this was created by the partner. So once the partner created this, I as an IT admin created my Google account and I was able to log into the portal using that Google account. So right now I'm logged into this portal using that same Google account. Over here you can see that there is my customer ID, which so this is the name of the customer and this is the customer ID. Each customer is going to have a customer ID. And then if I scroll down at the bottom, you can see my reseller. This is the active reseller. And then you can see the other resellers. So it gives you a list of all the resellers or all the partners that are present with whom I can collaborate with and with whom I can, they can upload the device details for me. So this is the reseller section. Now a brief quick tour of this portal. This portal is pretty friendly and easy to use, right? There are not many options. There is this configuration option wherein we go and create a configuration, which we will shortly. There is this devices blade, which shows us all the devices that has been uploaded to this customer by the reseller. It will show us with the name of the serial number or the IMEI number. There's this user section and there is this reseller section. The reseller section shows us all the resellers that are available. If I click on the user section, there are two kind of users that can be created in this portal. One is, as you can see on the right, a owner, and the other is an admin. An admin is somebody who can come to this portal and create a configuration assigned to a device, unassigned to a device and stuff like that. And owner has more elevated rights and he can add other admins to the portal. So a normal admin will not be able to create any other account or add any other admin to this portal. So that is one distinction. The second is, later on we will see that at the end of this deck we will see that we have an option of attaching this. There is an integration of Intune that happens with the zero touch portal, and for that we need to be an owner. If we are an admin, then that won't work, but stay tuned for that. For us, I just wanted us to know that this is a very standard portal, just has 4 blades on the left hand side, and it is pretty friendly and easy to use. Now what the partner has already done, he has done only those two things, right? Just to reiterate, he has created a customer account and he has uploaded the device that I have purchased against my account, right? So let me take a example of this device. So this is a device, this is the serial number. Once the partner has done it, if I go into devices blade and if I enter the serial number and if I do a search with the serial number and if I do a search, now the device is going to show up over here. What this means is this device was not showing up earlier. Once I as a customer purchase this device, my reseller is going to map this device against this customer. What that is going to do, whenever the customer is going to log into the portal, he is going to see the device. So getting the device to this portal, this is going to be taken care by the reseller or by the partner. There is nothing much that we can do over here. We just have to reach out to the reseller and partner and tell them that, okay, we have purchased the device. This is my customer ID. You create a customer account for me. This is the serial number. Well, anyways, he will already be having the serial number because he's the one supplying the device. But getting the device into this portal, this is you can think of it like this is a prerequisite, which already has to be facilitated, right? Now, once this prerequisite is met, now the admin's job starts. So now I, as an admin, will have to do two things. So the IT admin has to do two things. First is he has to go to the configuration blade and create a configuration profile. Okay. And the second is he has to assign that configuration profile to this device. That is why we needed the device over here to begin with, because you can create a configuration profile beforehand also. But how will you assign this configuration profile to a device which doesn't show up over here? That is why the first thing that we need is we need to tell our reseller that, okay, this is the customer account. Against this customer account, upload this device. So if I have purchased 1000 devices, all the 1000 devices should be visible over here. So my reseller or my partner has to upload all those 1000 devices against my customer name. So going back into the screenshot here, the vendor or the partner first creates a customer account in the portal, and then the reseller uploads the device details via the IMEI number or the serial number. If it is a Wi-Fi only device, then it will have a serial number. If it has a SIM, then there will be an IMEI number as well, right? So the reseller is going to upload it into the portal. The customer or the admin, which is me in this case, can now view the devices in the ZTE portal. So right now I can view my device if I search it with the serial number in the ZTE portal, right? So this is all taken care of. Now the IT admin will have to do the needed setup in the Intune portal, and he will have to create a configuration profile in the ZTE portal and assign it to the device, right? So the first thing that I have to do is I have to create a configuration profile. So I'm going to go to configurations, and then I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to create a configuration profile over here. Okay, so the configuration profile name can be anything. Right now, let's call this zero touch enrollment. Well, I am only going to use Intune, but if there are many MDMs, then maybe you can name it like that as well. And the kind of enrollment that you want to do, so maybe a COBO or a COSU or whatever I want to. In the EMM DPC list, you will see the list of all the EMMs that are out there. So over here, one of those EMMs is Microsoft Intune over here. So Microsoft Intune being one, but there are other EMMs as well. You will see mobile line and all of that. And what is the significance of this? I'll tell you the significance of this, but think of it this way. During the flow, the device is first going to reach out to the Google endpoint. Okay. And in the Google endpoint, we already have the device over here, and we already have a configuration profile assigned to it. This configuration profile actually determines where the device is going to get routed to. Like for example, if the configuration profile over here says that the device is going to be enrolled to Intune, then the device will reach out to the Intune endpoints. And where will it get the Intune endpoints from? We are going to mention it in the DPCs extra. If let's say that I want, so this zero touch enrollment of Google, this is not limited just to Intune. So let's say that you want to use this with AirWatch. So all you have to do is in the EMM DPC, you will have to find that other MDM, and you will have to provide the DPC extra for that MDM. Okay, right now I want to make use of Microsoft Intune, so I'm going to use Microsoft Intune over here. And then in the DPC extra, we will go back to the first documentation that I showed you guys. And if I scroll down in this documentation, this talks about what is the DPC extra that I have to use. This is nothing but just a JSON. I just have to copy this and I have to paste it over here. I will do a breakdown of this JSON later on, but for now, let's just copy this and let's just paste it over here. So I'm just going to copy it. I'm just going to paste it over here, and yeah. So I'm just going to paste it over here. Now, when you paste it over here, this says that, so what is this going to do? What is going to be the flow again? Just very quickly, the device reaches out to the Google endpoints. When the device reaches out to the Google endpoint, Google can see that this is a managed device because, well, obviously the serial number of this device is already present in this portal, right? And we are assigning this configuration profile to our device. So our device knows that it has to respect this, it has to adhere to this configuration profile. This configuration profile is for Intune, so the device is going to be routed to Intune. But then there are many ways by which we can enroll a device, an Android enterprise device, to Intune, right? So when I say many ways, what I mean, we have already seen that in the diagram. So if I go into Android and if I go into Android enrollment, there are so many ways by which we can do an enrollment of an Android device, right? I'm going to skip the DA part and the AOSP part. So even if I talk about the corporate owned enrollment, so personal owned, we can ignore this as well because we are doing a zero touch enrollment that would be always for a corporate device. So when I talk about corporate device, then there are three flavors, right? It can be a corporate owned dedicated device referred to as a COBO, or a corporate owned, sorry, this is the corporate owned device. It can be a dedicated kiosk device known as COSU, corporate owned single use, or it can be so in this one there is no user affiliation, or it can be a fully managed device with user associated with it known as COBO, or corporate owned business only, or it can be a COP device. So when the device reaches out to this portal is going to provide this payload to the device, and the device will go to Intune. But what kind of enrollment is the device going to follow? There has to be some kind of enrollment, right? Because as you see, there are so many kinds of enrollments, right? So let's say that I want to do a COSU enrollment for the device. So what I'll have to do, I'll have to click over here, and then I'll have to create a enrollment profile for COSU, right? And when we create an enrollment profile, it is very easy. Let's say that test profile. All you do is you have to select a corporate type. We'll go with the default one and then test. All this does is this creates something called a enrollment token. So when I click on create, it's going to create that profile. And then when I go inside this profile, it's going to show me an enrollment token. Now, what is the significance of this token? If I click on the show token, it's going to show me a QR code. Now, let me tell you the traditional non-zero touch way of enrolling an Android device. So the non-zero touch way of enrolling an Android device, if you have not done already, is you'll have to reset a device. Once the device is at the OOBE screen, you have to click on the home screen on that language screen for I guess 6 or 7 times. It opens up the camera, and then you have to scan this QR code. Once you scan this QR code, then the enrollment begins. Okay, that is the non-zero touch way of enrolling a COBO or a COSU device. Now we are doing a zero touch way, right? So obviously we cannot expect the end user to open the camera and scan it. So what are we going to do? We are going to use the name of this enrollment token. Now, why do we need the name of this enrollment token? Well, as I said, the device is going to come to the Google endpoint. Google endpoint is going to forward that request to Intune because over here I have selected Microsoft Intune as the EMM. But we have nowhere specified which kind of enrollment to Intune we are going to perform, whether it's going to be a COBO enrollment, whether it's going to be a COSU enrollment, right? So that needs to be performed, that needs to be specified someplace, right? Where are we going to specify that? We are going to specify this in the JSON itself. So if you look at this JSON, at the very last line talks about something in this code which says that your enrollment token, and it says that copy the JSON text into the DPC extra field, replace your enrollment token with the enrollment token you have created as a part of your enrollment profile. So what I mean by that is I just have to copy this, I just have to paste over here, and over here the last line which talks about what is the what is the name of the enrollment token, we have to replace this with the name of the enrollment token. And then I can provide a company name, I can provide a email address, support phone number, and some custom message if I want to. Once I've done all of that, all I have to do is click on add, right? So I hope that what we are doing in this portal is making sense. Nothing much needs to be done in the portal. The partner is going to do the first phase, that is creation of the account and uploading the device. I as an IT admin will just have to create a configuration profile. Once I have created the configuration profile, now I have to assign it to a device, right? So how do I assign it to a device? Again, the same drill. We were already able to see the device over here, right? So let me copy the serial number. So I was able, this is my device. I'm going to search it again. And then Once my device shows up over here, you can see that by default there will be no configuration profile assigned to it, and we will have an option of assigning a configuration profile here itself. So over here you see that uh, this configuration profile is assigned to it, but you can see a list of all the configuration profiles that have been created by all the admins in this portal under this customer ID. So I just created a configuration profile, right? So I will see this in this drop down. So I can select one of that from the drop down and then it will be assigned to it. Okay. So let's say that I want to switch it from COBO Saurav to, let's say, COSU Saurav. So I've created two profiles. One is for COBO and one is for COSU. So all I have to do is I have to come over here and click on COSU and then click on update. So now you see that to this device, this COSU profile is assigned. What is the difference between the COSU profile over here and the COBO profile that I have created? What is the difference between these two? Well, there is not much difference except one. And let me just show it to you. So if I go into the configuration and right now we created one configuration profile, right? And if I go into the COBO configuration profile, the COBO configuration profile contains the name of the enrollment token for COBO, right? I mean, that is the only difference. So over here, this is for COSU, right? And what was the enrollment token for COSU? Let me show it to you guys again. If I click on this and if I go to the tokens and do a show token, this is the token name, right? This is the token name for COSU. And similarly, we'll have to do the same if we want to do a COBO enrollment. The same thing needs to be done for COBO as well, right? So I'll have to click on this. There, I'll have to switch this to yes, and then there will be a token which is going to be created for COBO as well, right? So over here you can see that the token name is here. So I just have to copy that token name. Now let's say that I want some devices to be enrolled as COBO and some device to be enrolled as COSU, or some device to be enrolled as COPE when I am doing a zero touch enrollment to Intune. So it's very simple, right? I'll have to create three configuration profiles. In the first configuration profile, nothing needs to be changed in this JSON except in the last line, we have to enter the name of the enrollment token. So when we are doing COBO, then over here, this is the name of the enrollment token. I just have to copy this and you can see I have already pasted it over here, right? Rest all the fields are just optional. I've just entered my email address, my phone number, and just a custom message, right? If I wanted to do COSU, then all I'll have to do is, as I already showed you guys, I will go to COSU, or if I wanted to do COPE, all I have to do is I'll just have to create this token. I mean, the way of creating token remains the same irrespective of whether we are doing zero touch or not. Just need to get the name of the token and then create another configuration profile. Everything else is going to remain the same. Just need to update this token number over here. Once that is done, now let's say that I had got 1000 devices, 500 of them need to be enrolled to Intune zero touch via COSU methodology, and 500 needs to be enrolled as a COBO methodology. So I'll have to go to, well, obviously the prerequisite is the reseller will have to first upload all those 1000 devices to the devices section. So only when I'm able to see all those devices over here, I'll have to go to the device, and for the first 500 device, I will have to click on the drop down and select the COBO profile, COBO configuration profile, which I just made. And for the other 500, I will select the COSU, right? Now, you might usually it will, I mean, again, there is no, I won't generalize it by saying that usually customers will have only one kind of profile. They can have many. But what we can also do is, let's say that you've got 10,000 devices and all those 10,000 devices are going to be enrolled as COBO only, right? So all those 10,000 devices were uploaded in the devices section against the customer by the reseller. You created the configuration profile. Now, one way is you will have to go to each device and then assign the configuration profile to all those 10,000 devices, right? But there is only one profile, right? So there should be a better way. So there is a better way of doing this. The better way is you can when you're creating a configuration profile over here, you can mark that configuration profile as default. So what that does is over here, what I can do is I can select any configuration profile. Let's say I select this one, and then I can click on apply. What that is going to do, it's going to mark this profile as the default one. What it means is your default configuration will be applied to any new device added to your account by a reseller. What this means is whenever reseller uploads any account, any device against my customer account, which can be seen over here in device, it is going to by default get that default configuration profile. Now, for those 10,000 devices, I don't have to do anything, because whenever the reseller uploaded those devices over here, they by default got that default configuration profile, which can be the COBO one or COSU one or COP one or anything. Now, if I want to switch it to something else, then I'll have to go to that device, click on this drop down and switch it. But by default, all the devices will have the default configuration profile. So that is one advantage that we have. And again, there might be some ways of automating the assignment as well. I don't want to get into all of that, but so this is the only configuration that needs to be done in this portal. By the reseller creating a customer account and uploading devices against that customer, and by the IT admin, he has to log into this zero touch portal first, and then he should be able to see all the devices that were uploaded to his account by the reseller or partner in the previous step. Once he's able to see that, now he just has to create a configuration profile. The configuration profile is going to contain one information, very important information, and that is what is your MDM. It's going to contain the JSON file. We'll do a breakdown of this JSON later on, but more or less just think about this JSON, which contains information on where exactly Intune is and what kind of enrollment that we are going to do to Intune, because we are mentioning the enrollment token over here. Okay, so that is what the IT admin does. He creates a configuration profile and he assigns those configuration profile to a device which he is already able to see over here. Okay, so IT admin creates a configuration profile in the of Intune in the zero touch portal and assigns it to the device. Now the devices can be shipped to the end user. The end user just has to unbox it, which we are going to see very shortly. We are just going to unbox a fresh device. Which device are we going to unbox? We are going to unbox this device, which has this policy assigned to it. So this is our device. Right now you see that it already has a policy assigned to it, which we have just assigned. We are going to unbox this device, and then we are going to see the behavior. Now there is one more thing that we would want to do beforehand, before I actually switch to the device and before I show you guys what the behavior is. And that is, once the device is enrolled, let's say that the device is going to be enrolled as COSU or COBO or COP, right? Once the device is enrolled, we will have to push some policies to those devices, right? And how will you let's say that I want to push an application to that device, or let's say that I want to push a device configuration policy to that device. So for that, we will have to create those, right? And when we create those, we will have to assign it to a group, right? So if it is a user-less device, if it is a COSU device, then we will have to assign it to a device group. And if it is a COBO device, then we can assign it to a user group. But we will have to assign it to a group, right? So that is the part that I want to do now. I want to do that configure. Before I unbox the device, I want to come to Intune, create a group, add the user or the device to that group, and then create a configuration profile and an app deployment profile and assign it, so that once we are unboxing the device after the enrollment, we can see the device getting those policies and applications as well. So how are we going to create a group? Well, if it is a COBO enrollment, then it is pretty simple, right? All we have to do is we have to add all the users to a group, and we already know who those users are. So that is pretty much simple. But if it is a COSU enrollment, then it gets a little tricky, right? Why does it get a little tricky? Well, it gets a little tricky because COSU enrollment means there is no user. So it needs to be a device group, right? And you cannot add a device to a group until that device is already enrolled, right? So does that mean that I'll have to wait for the device? So there are two ways, right? Either the one thing that I can do is I can wait for the device to be enrolled, and once the device is enrolled, the device will not get any policy because obviously nothing has been deployed to it. Once the device is enrolled, then I create a group and I manually add the device that I have enrolled to that group, and then I use that group for deployment of policies and applications. That is one way, right? But then every time, let's say there are 1,000 devices, you cannot do this 1,000 times, right? You cannot just wait for all the devices to get enrolled one by one and then add those devices to the group one by one, right? So the other way of doing this is a dynamic membership, which I'm going to show now, and this just needs to be done once. So what I'll do is I'll go to new group, and then let's call this ZTE group, and then the membership is going to be dynamic device. Well, obviously, if I'm saying that the membership is going to be dynamic device, we'll have to add a query here. And the query that we are going to use is pretty standard. So I'm just going to click dynamic query, and over here it says that property. So let's say that I want to say that the enrollment profile name is equals test. So what this means is any device which is enrolled using the enrollment profile name test is going to be added to this group. Now we know which devices are going to be enrolled using the device test, using the profile name test. That is the devices that we have added into the zero touch portal and who in their configuration profile, we already saw this, right? When we were putting in the name of the JSON, in the JSON we have put in the name test, right? So any device, so what is going to be the flow again? Very quickly, the device comes to the Google endpoint, because it realizes that it is a corporate device, because we have already uploaded the serial number of the devices to Google. So the device reaches out to the Google endpoint, just like an autopilot device would reach out to the autopilot service. And when it goes over there, it sees that there is a configuration profile that is assigned to this device. That configuration profile has the Intune endpoint. So the device is going to reach out to Intune. Now it's going to get enrolled using the token that we have specified over here. May that be a COSU, COBO, or a COBO token. Now, once the device is enrolled using this token, we are using this as a parameter for our dynamic group query. So we are saying that any device which is enrolled using this profile is going to be added to this group. So all the COSU devices are going to be enrolled using this. So therefore we are going to add it like this. Now let's say that there are some COSU devices which are being enrolled via the QR code, and there are some other COSU devices which are going to be enrolled at zero touch. So I don't want those devices which are enrolled via QR code to be a part of this group, right? So for that, what I can do is I can create two separate profiles for COSU zero touch with two different names, test 1 and test 2. Test 1 we can use with our zero touch, and test 2 will have a different QR, and that we can use when we are doing a manual enrollment. Okay, so this is one way of creating a group, a dynamic group. So what this will do is, let's say that I've got 10,000 devices. Each time any of those 10,000 devices are unboxed and it's connected to the internet and the enrollment happens, the device will automatically get added to this group. So you won't have to add all those devices one by one each time the device is unboxing, right? So this is for COSU. Now let's say that I want to do the same thing for COBO. Then how do I do it? Because we saw that when we were doing a COBO enrollment, there is no value, there is no profile that we were creating, right? So what I mean by that is, let me quickly go to the portal. So there we are. So when we are doing corporate owned dedicated devices over here, we are creating a profile, right? And this is the name that we are using, that any device which is enrolled by this profile. So when I go into the profile has a QR code. So any device which is enrolled by this profile with this QR code is going to be a part of that dynamic group. This is the easy one. But what about this? What about COBO? Because over here, all the devices are going to have the same QR code which are going to be enrolled by COBO, right? You don't have an option of creating different profiles and then using that profile name. So how do you create a dynamic device group in this case? Well, in this case, what we are going to do, we are going to use this as a query, wherein device OS type is this. Let me just edit it, or you can do it from the drop down as well. Okay, so we are saying the device OS type is Android Enterprise and the enrollment profile name is null. So, well, I know that COSU is also Android Enterprise, but this is a AND operation of these two parameters. So we are saying that the OS should be Android Enterprise and the enrollment profile name should be null. And only in case of COBO, it is going to be null, because in case of COSU, we will have to create some profile, right? Only then, without creating the profile, we won't get the QR code. So this is how you set it up for COBO. So, once we have created these two groups, so what I've done is I've created these two groups using the same query. So, there are two groups. One is the COSU group and one is the COBO group. So if I go into the COSU group and look at the dynamic membership over here, it says that any device which is enrolled with a profile with the name test, and we already know that there is only one COSU profile which is created with the name test. And for the COBO, what we have is the dynamic membership rule is the one that I just showed. The device enrolled as Android Enterprise and the name is null. So now we have created these two groups. Now all that needs to be done is any configuration that I wish to deploy to these devices once enrolled, I just have to deploy it to these two devices, these two groups. Now, no, so what I want you to, what I would want everybody to keep in mind over here is this is just a one-time setup. The setup that we did over here was one time. All we had to do was create a configuration profile once and assign it to devices. Now you might have to assign, now you might say that I will have to assign it to devices every time the devices are uploaded by the supplier. Well, that is true, but what you can also do is you can create a default configuration profile, which would mean that every time the supplier or the reseller is uploading a profile, uploading a device over here, it will automatically get that default configuration. Once it gets it, the device is unboxed, powered on, gets enrolled to Intune, and then it gets added to these either of these two groups depending upon which profile was applied to the device. And once the devices are added to this group, any configuration or app deployment that was applied to these two groups will come down to the device. So you don't, and these devices are automatically populated in the group because we have a dynamic query. The point that I'm trying to make is the group creation or anything that we are doing over here, this is all one time thing. Now everything is automated. Not exactly automated. What I mean is all that has to be done is by the supplier. He just has to, next time you purchase 10,000 more devices, the supplier has to upload those to the portal. It will start showing up in your zero touch enrollment, in your zero touch account as well, against your customer account. And then you're all good to go. Nothing else needs to be done. So enough said. So all I'll have to do now is maybe let's go to configuration profiles and let's create a demo configuration profile. Right. So in the demo configuration, I mean, obviously there can be any configuration profile applied to the device, right? Once it is enrolled, you can deploy certificates, you can deploy device restrictions, any kind of profiles that you would want to. The one I just want to give you an example. So let's say that let's create a profile which is going to block the usage of camera. So all I'll have to do is create a profile. In the platform, I am going to select Android Enterprise. And over here, there are two options. One is personally owned and one is fully managed. So our devices are either fully managed or dedicated or corporate owned work profile, which is COPE. So I'm going to select device restrictions. And over here, let's just call this test. And over here, there are so many options, right? So amongst these options, we can uh, let's say we can block the camera maybe. So over here it says that fully managed dedicated corporate owned work profile. So these settings will be applied to that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click on block camera. Okay. So that's all. I mean, I just want to show you guys that this is going to work. I mean, if we just set up the policy once, everything else falls into place. And over here in the assignment, all I have to do is I have to add the groups that I have created, the COSU group as well as the COBO group, right? This is what I have to do. So once this is done, I have already created the deployment. Let me just show you guys. This is the deployment that I've created. Nothing fancy has been done. All I've done is in the general, in the camera, I have blocked the camera, right? And it has been assigned to the COSU group and the COBO group, right? Which we have created, which we are going to dynamically get the members whenever the devices are enrolled by either of the tokens. Okay. So, and just for the sake of it, let's just deploy an application as well. So what we can do is we can go to add, and then we can deploy a, let's say, Android store application or any kind of application. So I already have, let's say, Teams, which is a managed Google. So these devices are Android enterprise device, right? So if you want to deploy an application to Android enterprise devices, it has to be a managed Google Play Store app, meaning you will have to approve it and then it will show up over here. And then all I have to do is, well, just go to the properties and then assign it to a group. So I've added both the groups, the COBO group and the COSU group, both the groups as required. What this means is, when we are going to do when we are going to see the end user behavior in the tab, we are going to see that the Teams application is going to get installed as required. That is automatically, right? Because we are actually showing a zero touch enrollment wherein the end user will not have to do anything to begin with. All right, so the setup is done. So now let's do this. Now let's first see how exactly a COSU enrollment looks like from end user's perspective. So when we are going to do a COSU enrollment, all we'll have to do is, first let me make sure that the serial number is, the device has the correct profile assigned to it. So let me just select serial number over here and let me just do a search. I'll just have to make sure that the COSU profile, I've created two configuration profiles over here, right? One for COSU, which contains the token for COSU, and the other one contains the token for COBO. You just have to make sure that the profile which has the token for COSU is applied over here, because that is what we are going to do first. So if I scroll down, this is the one, COSU Saurabh. So I just have to update it. And now you can see that the COSU profile is assigned. Now that's all that needs to be done from the portal end. Now what we are going to do, we are going to go to the device with this as the serial number, unbox it. If the device is already in use, all we have to do is factory reset it. If it is a brand new device, then you just have to power it on. We'll connect it to the internet. The device will reach out to the Google endpoint. It will route it, and when it goes to the Google endpoint, it's going to get this as the configuration profile from the Google endpoint. This configuration profile will take the device to Intune, and this configuration profile has the token that the device is going to use for enrollment. And this token that the device is going to use for enrollment, as it turns out, is this token that we have created for COSU, and the device is going to end up getting enrolled using this token. And once the device is enrolled, it will get added to the group, it will get the Teams application, the device restriction policy, and all of this is going to be completely zero touch over the internet. That is, no scanning of QR code is needed. And in case of COSU, we will see no username, password needs to be entered. In case of COBO, yes, we will see that the device is going to be attributed to a user, so the end user will have to enter his credentials, right? But then again, it is just like autopilot. I mean, the IT admin intervention is removed. And most importantly, I want to stress here that in the out of the box experience, we will see that all the steps that the end user has to take are all mandatory steps. He does not have an option of going to the home screen and then just stopping everything, because the device will only be set up and it will come to the home screen once all the mandatory steps which involve the device getting enrolled to Intune have been followed. So let's quickly switch to the device now and then see the behavior. Okay, so if we have an existing device, then all we'll have to do is we'll have to go to settings and then click on factory data reset. So I'm just going to click on factory data reset. It tells us that all this data is going to be gone. I'm just going to click on reset and then delete all. This is going to restart the machine, and once it restarts, it's going to come out of the box. If it is a brand new device, then obviously this step can be skipped. Okay, so now we see that the device is powering up. It's a Samsung Galaxy Tab A7. We see the prompt which says that Android is starting. And then this is the very first screen that comes up. This is the screen which tells us to select a location or a language, and then we have to click on start. So you can think of this as a similar screen which we would see in case of a Windows device as well, wherein we have to set the keyboard or the language and the location. So I'm just going to click on start. And then there are a few EULA that we have to agree to. These are all coming from Google. So I'm just going to click on more, and then I'm going to click on, I have read all of these, and I'm going to click on next. Then it tells me to choose a Wi-Fi network. The device needs to be connected to the internet. Well, obviously that is how the device is going to reach out to the Google endpoint and download the configuration profile. In our case, the configuration profile being for Intune, and then it's going to talk to Intune and get itself enrolled, right? So connecting to Wi-Fi obviously is a mandate, just like it would in case of autopilot or depth provisioning. So I'm just going to click on this, and I'm going to enter the password. Okay, so I just entered the password, going to click on connect. The authentication to Wi-Fi obviously happens. This is an open internet, so there is no issue of any endpoint getting blocked via the firewall. So I just click on next. And then this is the point wherein the device is going to reach out to the Google endpoint. It's going to realize that the device is a corporate device and not a personal device. It's going to realize that there is a MDM profile that is assigned to this device. So this is the place from wherein we see that the out of the box experience is going to be customized. And there you see the prompt. It says that the device belongs to your organization. So the device reached out to the endpoint, identified that it's not a personal device, and we get this prompt. Okay, we see that there are some other EULA that we have to accept. This one seems to be from Samsung Knox. It says that Samsung Knox uses your personal data. See the Samsung Knox privacy statement. We are all good there. And then you see that at the bottom, it gives me the name of the organization that this device belongs to. So you can see at the bottom, it says everything about Intune is going to manage this device, right? So I'm just going to click on accept and continue. Tells us that the device is not private, which we are aware of. And you see that I don't have an option. There is no home screen, meaning I cannot just skip all of this and change my mind and not do this. That option is not there. I can only go to the previous screen, or I can go ahead. So I'm just going to click on next. And at this point, you see that the Microsoft Intune application is being downloaded in the device. Now, this is just a broker application which is being downloaded. And when we will launch this application, once the device is enrolled, we will see that there is not much things that the application is going to display, because this setup is as a COSU setup, corporate owned single use. So there won't be any user affiliation to this device. We see that again we are getting a prompt from Google services. It tells us that it's going to use the location, allow scanning. I'm all good with that. So I'm just going to accept this. Again, this prompt is not coming from Intune. And then it says that your device is ready to go. So I'm just going to click on done. And then you will see that we are at the home screen. So in the entire process, we saw that the user did not have to enter any username, any password.
He did not have to scan any QR code, download any applications manually. All he did was power on the device, connect to Wi-Fi, accept 3 or 4 prompts. So a couple of prompts were for the EULA from Samsung Knox, EULA from Google, and giving access to Google services so that it can manage the location and the app updates and stuff like that. So it was all pretty much next finish, and this is what a complete zero touch enrollment looks like. This is a real zero touch enrollment because the user did not even have to enter his credentials. Obviously the device is not attributed to the user, so if I launch the Intune application, you don't see much here. It just says that the setup was complete, and I just have an option of closing it because obviously there is no user affiliation to this device. There is a sync that I can run just so that, I mean, if there is any policies that we are waiting for, we can get those policies, but that is pretty much it. So all right, so now we are just going to wait for a couple of minutes, and then we are going to see whether the MDM policies is going to come down to this device or not. So let me just open the camera and show you guys that the camera is actually working. This is because the MDM policy has not come down to this device yet. Therefore, the device is still not having any kind of restriction. We are just waiting for the MDM policy to come down, after which the camera will be restricted, and we are expecting the Teams application to automatically install in this device anytime. We can even open up the Play Store, and from the Play Store we can see what is the status of the application. So right now there is only one app, that is Microsoft Intune, that is installed in this device. Okay, there you go, and we just waited for around 4 to 5 minutes, and now you see that Microsoft Teams has been installed. When we go to the Play Store, if we go to the home screen, then over here also we can see that the Microsoft Teams application is installed. We can more customize this and maybe deploy an app configuration policy via which the user will not even have to enter his credentials when he is logging into the Teams application. But yeah, I mean, as you can see, the application was also installed. If I launch the camera, it says that security policy restricts the usage of camera. So this was a complete zero demonstration of an actual zero touch enrollment, and this is actual zero touch because no credentials even had to be entered during the enrollment flow. And well, as you can imagine, now the device is enrolled to Intune, so all the policies that we want to deploy to the device, we can easily deploy it. The only thing that we have to keep in mind is this is a userless device, so the policies will have to be targeted to a device group and not to a user group. Okay, so I've quickly switched over to the portal, and I just want to show you guys how the device looks like when we're at the portal. So I'm going to go into all devices, and it's going to show me this is the device that we have just enrolled. So if I click on this, when you look at the device name, you see that there is no suffix of the name of the user because there is no UPN associated with the user. We didn't enter one, so it only has the timestamp. And if I go into device configuration, you can see that the device configuration that we had pushed to the device has successfully gone down. There are a couple of things. Well, obviously there is no work profile, therefore it says that not applicable. But the main thing that I wanted to check was camera, and camera was successfully installed. I mean disabled. So yeah, this looks good. And if I go into the applications, I can see that Teams application has been installed as well. Just ignore the managed browser. The Teams application is the main thing that is installed. Okay, so that is pretty much it. I mean, this is how a zero touch enrollment is, complete zero touch enrollment would look like, and this is how the device is going to look like. And well, obviously if we look at the groups, then we will have to make sure that the device that we are using such kind of a query, that the device is getting automatically added to that group, right? Which we have in this case.
Okay, so now we are going to see zero touch enrollment of Android to Intune via Google ZTE for a COBO device. And nothing else needs to be changed for COBO. The only thing that needs, because we have already created 2 different configuration profiles here, right? So if I want to do it for the same device, so for this device, we just saw COSU enrollment. Now, since we want to see COBO for the same device, all I have to do is I have to switch the profile to the other one. So I'm just going over here and I am going to switch it to the COBO profile. Okay, and just update. Rest all has already been configured. I have already used the correct dynamic query and I have already created a group. So once the device is enrolled, it will automatically get added to the group, and I've already deployed the application, the Teams application, as well as the device configuration profile to the COBO group as well, right? So all that is taken care of. So all that I had to do was come to the zero touch portal and say that this time when the device comes to Google is supposed to forward that request to Intune, but this time use a different token while it's going to undergo the enrollment, right? Because as we know, COBO and COSU both have different QR and different enrollment, right? So now so that's all that we had to do at the portal end. Now let's switch to the device, do a factory reset of the device, and then see what the behavior is in this case.
All right, so now we are going to do a COBO enrollment or corporate owned business only. So for that, I am going to factory reset the device again, just like we did the last time. Delete all, the device is going to restart. And this time we are going to see that again, the enrollment experience is going to be kind of zero touch, but except, I mean, in addition to what we did in the previous case, in case of COSU, in case of COBO, in this case, the end user will have to enter his credentials. So that's why I said that the logic of something being zero touch or not being zero touch is very subjective, right? I mean, where do you exactly draw the line, right? So in this case, obviously there is no QR scanning or anything that the end user will have to do. Everything will be done out of the box, but the only thing is the end user will have to enter his credentials while the enrollment happens. So we see that the device is showing us the default boot logo and boot image, and then the device is going to go through the out of the box experience, and then we will see that we are going to come to the same screen like we saw in the last time, wherein we will have to set the language, and then we'll proceed from there. And there you go. As you can see, it just took a couple of minutes and the device has undergone the reset. It's at the brand new out of the box screen. It's telling me to choose the language. I'm going to go with the default one. Just going to click on start, and then the same EULA. I'm just going to click on I have read and agreed. Have to connect to Wi-Fi. Okay, so connecting to Wi-Fi. All right, going to click on next. Again, the same drill. The device is going to reach out to the Google endpoint. It's going to identify that there is a MDM that is going to manage this device, just like we have already seen in case of autopilot or DEP. And then it's going to tell us that the device is managed by the organization, and then the same flow is going to happen. We'll see the differences. There are a couple of differences that we'll see in this case, like Google Chrome gets downloaded, installed because we need a browser to because at that point of time the company portal application or the Intune app is not there. So in order to enroll the device, we are going to need a browser. Therefore, Google Chrome gets downloaded and installed, and then user has to sign in because this is the COBO enrollment. But we are going to see all of that very shortly. And there you go. It tells us that the device belongs to your organization. I'm going to click on next. And until now, all the screens that we have seen is similar to what we saw in the previous case, as in what we saw in COSU. But later on, we'll see that the screens are going to change. This is again the same EULA for Samsung Knox. Going to click on accept and continue. Tells us that device is in private, as it should. Going to click on next. And there you see Google Chrome got downloaded automatically, and it's telling me to accept and continue. I'm going to click on that, and Chrome is going to launch. And this is the part wherein the end user has to sign in, and those credentials are going to Azure AD register this device, as it does in all cases, and then it's going to Intune enroll this device. Okay, we see the custom branding at the back end. and I just entered my credentials. Going to click on sign in. I don't want to save my password. It takes a couple of seconds. And then it in a way shows a checklist. In the checklist, we can see it's going to install some applications in the first phase, and the second phase, which is a little grayed out, which will become active later on, says that we have to register our device. So first now we are going to click on install, and it's going to install the Microsoft Authenticator and the Intune application, right? So Microsoft Intune application. So I'm just going to wait for the installation to happen. The Microsoft Authenticator we already know. Microsoft Intune, this is the broker agent. Think of it like a company portal but for corporate devices. And you can see that the first application is installed, shows a great green tick. Once the second one is installed, we will see a green tick as well. And again, just to reiterate, the end user cannot skip any of these. So I don't have a home button active right now, as you can see at the bottom. I can only go back, which will take me to the previous screen, or I can go forward by clicking on done once the specific step is done. So I don't have an option of exiting this and stopping this and not doing all of this if I want to use the device. Just going to click on done, and then it's going to check whether the applications that were supposed to be installed are installed or not. It is, shows a green tick. Now we have to register our device. I'm going to click on setup. I've already so you see that the Intune application which got installed is launched, and this is a difference from what we saw in the previous step again, in the previous case of COSU again. And I have already entered the username, so now you will see it won't ask me for the username. It already knows the name of the user. It's only going to ask me for the password, which I am going to enter now. Okay, just entered the password, going to click on sign in, and then I want to register my device. So I'm just going to click on register. And then you see that the registration is done. Now I'm going to click on next, and if there is a device category that has been set, then I have to choose the device category as well. This is not a mandatory step. If you don't have any device category in your portal, this won't show up. In my case, there are a couple of device categories. Like, let's say that there are many departments and you want to segregate which device is being used by which department. You can create a device category for that. So right now it's checking whether the device is registered or not. And then there we should be able to see a green tick. Once we see that, we will see the next screen. And there you go. We see the green tick over here, which says that the device has been successfully registered. Now I'm going to click on next. It will tell me to choose a device category. Let me just go with HR. Going to click on OK. This is all done. Going to click on done. Check the work checklist again. It was all done. Now this screen is similar to what we saw in the previous kind of enrollment as well. This is a screen from Google services. It's telling us whether we want to allow them to use the location or not, scanning or not, send data diagnostic, and let them install the applications and updates or not. You can set it to the way you want, and then it tells us that the device is ready to go. Just going to click on done, and now I am at the home screen. So this is how a zero touch enrollment for a COBO device is going to look like, corporate owned business only. And if we compare it with COSU, well, obviously there are more touches that are needed in this case. When I say more touches, there were, well, obviously those touches that were needed wherein we had to accept the EULA for Google, the EULA for Samsung Knox, and there are a couple of times we had to click on next and done. And most importantly, once the Google Chrome was installed, the end user had to enter his username and password to get authenticated, which was used for enrollment. So that is again very thin line between what you actually refer to as zero touch. But if you want the user device association to happen, then the authentication has to happen. And for the authentication to happen, the end user will have to enter his credentials, right? So there is no way around that. If you don't want to get authenticated, then obviously you can use COSU. wherein that will also be bypassed. So again, the same policies have been deployed to this device. So all we have to do is just wait for a while, and we will see whether those policies are coming down or not. Okay. What I can do is now, if I launch the Intune application, you see that it actually shows the name of the, firstly you see the name of the device, as well as the prefix is the name of the user, which we didn't in the previous case because obviously there was no user. And then you see the name of the device as well. If I click on the device, I see more details and I have an option of running a sync. So all these were not there in COSU, right? So we already know the difference between COSU and COBO. I don't want to get into the details of that. Right now, my intent is demonstrating the zero touch part of it. So if I open up Google Play, the same drill over here as well. You will see that Teams application is going to get installed and camera is going to be disabled, just like it was in the previous case. Alright, so we just waited for a couple of minutes and now you can see that Microsoft Teams application is also installed. Let me go at the home screen. I can see Microsoft Teams installed over there as well, like it was in the previous case. I mean, once the device is enrolled, then all the other things happen in a similar way. So Teams application got installed. If I launch the camera app doesn't work because all those policies were deployed to a similar kind of a device group, right? So this is how a zero touch enrollment for a COBO device is going to look like.
Okay, and the next thing that I want to talk about is the Intune portal integration with Google Zero Touch. Now, before I talk about that, what we have seen until now, this capability of doing a zero touch enrollment of an Android device to Intune via Google ZTE, either as a COSU or a COBO or a COP, this has existed since quite a while. This is nothing new. However, what is new? This is new. So if we go into the official documentation and check the what's new for Intune, for the week of 15th, you will see that there is this announcement which says that configure zero touch enrollment from Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center. Then what is this talking about? If I'm saying that whatever we spoke or whatever we saw has always existed. So right now, if you go into your portal and if you come to this screen, you would see that there is one new option over here which says zero touch enrollment, and it says that link your zero touch account to Intune and manage zero touch enrollment. So this option was not there before in the portal, but the functionality was always there and we could always do it the way I have just showed it to you in the demo. So in the demo, we never came to this option. We never enabled or disabled anything, right? So what this option lets you do is if you click over here, it's going to open a tab. And over here, you will have to log in with the same ID which you were using to log into the Zero Touch account, the Zero Touch portal of Google. So, and once you have, and you need to be an owner of that, just being just a normal user is not going to help. Once you have provided that information over here and once you click on next, so if I click on next, I'll have to sign in using that. So this is my account. However, this is not an admin. Therefore, this is not going to work. You need to be an admin for this to work. Over here, it says that make sure you're an owner. So I'm not an owner. I'm just a user which is created via which I can log into the Zero Touch portal. But the point here is if you are an owner, then once you link it, the advantage is next time when you have to open the Zero Touch portal, you can just click over here and it will launch it for you. You don't have to go to the browser and then enter the URL and log into it again. That is the only advantage. So this option, this is not any capability that we have added. The only thing that we have added is the functionality for the admin to link their Google Zero Touch account over here, so that when the admin is clicking over here, he is by default routed over to the Google Zero Touch portal. What happens if you don't do this linking? Well, if you don't do this linking, all you have to do is open a browser and then go to the same portal, the same Google Zero Touch portal, and log in over there like I have been logging in. So just wanted to mention that this option is there. For this, you need to be an owner in the Zero Touch portal, and if you are, then you should be good to go. So this is the portal I'm talking about. We have already seen this. So this is the zero touch portal of Google. Right now, what I've done is I have explicitly logged into this portal. But if we don't want to explicitly log in, all we have to do is use the same account over there and link it over here so that whenever we are clicking on this link, the same portal opens up in a tab, right? Okay, guys, so I would have ordinarily ended my video here, but then you guys know me. I'm not going to stop until I give you that extra bit of information as well, right? So this is the value add. What I wanted to next talk about was DPC. What exactly is DPC? And because when we were doing the configuration, we saw that we were entering the DPC value extra, right? So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and understand. So before we talk about DPC, so DPC stands for Device Policy Controller. Earlier, it was known as Work Policy Controller. So you might listen to these terms sometimes when you, especially when you're, when you're dealing with work profile kind of scenario, wherein there is an Android device which is enrolled as Android Enterprise. So think of DPC as, now this might be a stupid analogy, but still I have to lay it out there. So if you're from a Windows background and if you have managed Windows devices from via Intune, so think of DPC as a similar to what a IME would do. So when we enroll a device, the Intune management, what an IME would do just for Win32 application, DPC is doing here for the entire OS. So IME or Intune management extension was like a bridge, and it was our hands on the device, right? It would query our endpoints, it would find out all the policies that are applied, it would find out all the applications that are applied, and then it would download the detection logic, the dependencies and stuff like that. It would do all the evaluation, then go back to the Intune service and let it know that the application has installed. It would do the polling all the time and stuff like that, right? So think of device policy controller as something similar. So whenever we are enrolling an Android device as Android Enterprise, so there is a work profile that gets created. Somebody has to create that work profile, right? And then there is a personal profile as well, which is already present. Now this segregation of data needs to happen between the work profile and the personal profile. Somebody has to do that, right? Now let's say that from Intune we are deploying a device configuration profile and saying that the camera in the device should be blocked. So somebody has to be the hands-on, somebody has to be the guy who goes there and does it, right? Think of DPC as that guy. So device policy control, so now we understand what is the need. Somebody has to do the data segregation and somebody has to apply the device restrictions, whatever policies we are deploying to the device. So to handle these tasks, what we do is we deploy an application, we develop an application, we deploy an application known as device policy controller or work policy controller. So this app is responsible for applying the device restriction policies that we are creating and that we are deploying to the work profile on the device. And when we deploy these policies, then the camera gets blocked or the device starts behaving in a specific way. So the way it works is, from Intune we deploy a policy, a device restriction policy. From EMM we will be deploying that. The policy will come to the controller. The policy will obviously come to our agent. So not just with Intune, you might be using any MDM. So the policy will come down to the device, the agent will read it, and then the application is going to query the device admin APIs. So you are deploying a policy does not mean that the policy is going to take effect, right? What if you want to disable camera in a device which does not have a camera to begin with, right? So then obviously the policy is not going to take effect. So the controller app first finds out the policy that is there, and then it uses device administration APIs to implement those policies. So device administration APIs are the APIs exposed by the OS. Just similar analogy, in case of Windows we have CSPs, right? CSPs are or configuration source providers are something that are exposed by the Windows operating system so that any MDM agent can manage those remotely. So similarly, the OS has device administration APIs as well. So via those APIs, the device policy controller is making those changes in the OS. Okay, so DPC functions, it creates a work profile which accesses the enterprise apps and data and keeps the user's personal data separate from the work data. The app acts as a bridge between the enterprise management software and the device, because the app is then the hands-on app is the one that is making those actual changes. And the enterprise tells the controller app when it needs to make any configuration change, and the controller app makes the appropriate settings changes on the device and on the other applications. It receives the restrictions from the administrator, forwards those restrictions to the apps if you are making any changes to the apps. So the reason I wanted to talk about DPC is if I go quickly to the portal. So this is the documentation that we were referring to, right? When we were talking about our official documentation. So if I scroll down to the bottom, you see that there was this value that I had copied when we were creating the configuration profile in the ZTE portal, which we will do again very shortly. So where does this come from? I mean, these are key value pairs for the DPC extra field. But where is this coming from? This is coming from this official documentation from Android. And over here, you see that they have listed the very same thing. These are, if you want to do a zero touch enrollment, then this is the key value pair that needs to be. So think of this as an instruction that we are providing to the DPC application in the device. So this is the instruction that we are providing. So in this, what does this instruction contain? This instruction, we have already seen that this instruction contains the enrollment token. So when as we have already seen, when a device is going, just telling a device, so what is happening over here? We are creating a configuration policy in the zero touch portal. What is the flow again? The device is powered on, it reaches out to the Google endpoints, figures out that there is a profile assigned to it. It goes to that profile. In that profile, I have mentioned Microsoft Intune in the drop down, and I have provided this information. So just telling the device that go to Microsoft Intune service is not sufficient for the device to get enrolled, because as we know, in case of Android Enterprise, there are so many ways of enrolling an Android Enterprise. So we need to tell the device that this is the kind of enrollment you are supposed to follow. So that is what we are providing over here. We are providing under the admin extra bundle, we are providing the name of the token, and there are a few download locations that we have provided as well. So I mean, all this information that is over here is what we have over here as well, wherein our enrollment token is something that we are going to replace. So let me quickly go to the zero touch portal, and over here let's take a look over the configuration that we have used earlier. So this is the profile that we have, the COBO one that we had used. And in this COBO profile, this is the DPC extra that we had used. And in COSU, all we did was we changed the enrollment token to something else, right? So what happens if I don't put in a DPC extra? So if I don't put this in, then the device will go to the Google service. The Google service will say that, you know what, in this drop down, the Google service will say that this is the profile assigned to you. Now this profile says that you need to go to Microsoft Intune service. So the device will go to Microsoft Intune service. But once the device goes to the Microsoft Intune service, the device will not know what kind of enrollment the device is going to go through, whether it is going to be a COSU or a COBO or a COP. It has to be one amongst these three, right? Because DA you cannot enroll like this, and just BYOD work profile you cannot enroll like this. This is only for fully managed. So then what will happen? The device will not know how to get enrolled. Then what will happen? We will have to do something in the device. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the DPC extra and update this profile. And now we will go back to the device, factory reset it. I'll forward the initial few screens, and then we will see what exactly the behavior is when the DPC extra is not provided in the configuration profile.
Okay guys, so I'm back at the device, just factory resetted it, and I'm going to go through all the initial steps. The initial steps are going to remain the same in this case as well, because the only change that we have made is to the configuration in the DPC, right? So let me just quickly go through all these steps, and then we will come back. All right, so going to connect to the internet. Okay, so it gives us the first prompt, that is, it has got the profile and it has realized that this is a corporate device. So prompts until now have been the same. We have not seen any change in prompt as compared to what we would see earlier. But this is a new prompt that we are seeing. Since we have not provided the enrollment token, the device does not know which token to use in order to get enrolled. Therefore, it is telling us if you want the device policy to take pictures, the DPC controller to take pictures, if we are allowing this only this time, then you see that the camera opens up in the device. And this camera is so that I can scan the QR code. If I scan the QR code now, or if I enter the code manually, so I just entered the code here, and if I enter the token, then you will see that the enrollment is going to continue and the enrollment is going to happen the usual way, just like it would if we had already provided it. So the moral of the story here is we are providing the token in the DPC extra so that we don't have to provide it manually over here, so that the end user does not have to either, because if he has to provide it manually, then there is no zero touch, right? Then he might as well then we might as well would have eliminated Google Zero Touch portal to begin with and directly told the user to scan the QR code which the admin could have emailed to him. So that we can automate this part is the reason why we provide the DPC extra, so that those DPC extra is like an input to the device policy controller, and the device policy controller knows what token to use while doing the enrollment and while creating the work profile.
So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope that we were able to, in this nugget, understand the various methodologies of enrolling a device to Intune, why exactly zero touch is needed, how, in which scenarios does zero touch fit into the picture. We were able to understand with the demo what exactly the end user experience is going to be when we talk about zero touch, and the fact that the word zero touch is in many cases very subjective, and we need to draw a line and have that consult with the customer that when he wants zero touch, what is the extent of touching he to the device he is agreed to do, right? All right, guys, I hope this has been informative for you. I would like to thank you for viewing. This is your friend Saurabh Sarkar signing off.